Today we have on the show Ian Jones. He's from Seattle, Washington. And we got into some really good, deep discussion about the making of his latest EP titled Evergreens. It's really awesome. You got to really check it out. It's going to come out this Friday as we roll out this episode, which is October 22nd of 2021, and get it wherever you get your music, or you can go to Ian Jones Music. That shouldn't be too hard to spell there, right? IanJonesMusic.com, and just navigate that page to get this new 6-song EP. He's been in the business for a long time, and he's just an amazing, gifted singer, songwriter, musician, does it all, has a great new band. He's really at peace with having this band work with him, and he's taking it out on the road soon. They actually are getting together to follow up this EP with a full-length album. Check this out. This is a really fun discussion. Hope you enjoyed this.
So where are you calling from, Robert?
I am in Atlanta, Georgia.
Ah, excellent.
It's a good music town here too, as well. We have a lot of good talent here.
I was back around 2000. I was living in Santa Barbara, and the band I was in, we did a big US tour, and we were fortunate enough to base ourselves out of Athens. And we did, there was a guy there that was like, hey, just crash with me and he had this big house and big land and a barn and stuff. And so we stayed with him for like 3 weeks and did our entire southeast leg of the tour out of Athens. And we went back to Athens every night. God knows how much money we saved by not having to get hotels and stuff. But lovely, lovely part of the country.
Yeah, you really do save a lot of money. Even in Athens, I think they really jack the prices up because you can't really stay anywhere else. People are visiting the university. So it's like you have no choice. You get price gouged over there. So yeah, you probably did save a fortune.
Yeah, it was nice. It was right. It was at that tour, we left for the tour 2 days after September 11th.
Wow.
So we were driving around the country and there was no airplanes. It was just eerie, but people really needed music. So it was a fun trip. And we ended up in Athens middle of October. And so it was just wonderful. It was still sunny but the evenings were crisp and the bugs were gone and it was wonderful. So.
Oh, that's so true. It is so hot and muggy. And this has been one of the worst summers. I'm hitting about 33 years here in the Atlanta area. Right. This is awful. I mean, I just even did a little run this morning. I was like, I can't do that much. It was like 90% humidity.
Is Eddie's Attic still a venue?
Yes, and I do a lot of stuff with people who appear at Eddie's Attic. A lot of good artists. In fact, just spoke again with this folk musician named John McCutcheon, who just has released an album called Bucket List, and he's a pretty big artist at Eddie's, downtown Decatur.
Yeah, we did. We were on the same label as John Mayer, and this was before he got signed to Capitol, and he was working there. Or he was doing something there. Anyway, we went in to meet up with him, and he had a sound check. And that was when I first saw him play electric guitar.
Wow.
Only familiar with his breathy acoustic singer-songwriter stuff. And I walked in and I watched him do a Hendrix bit on his Strat. And I thought to myself, the hell are you doing playing acoustic, man? Literally. And then I got to see him. He came to Santa Barbara a bunch. He opened up for Glenn Phillips and he was played with Matt Nathanson. And I don't want to say I got to know him, but it's funny seeing him when you meet someone like that, then they get to be extraordinarily famous. They get a lot of guff. He was the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah, he does. Somehow, yeah, he's had some mishaps with the media, but honestly, what a talent. Holy crap.
Oh, and he's doing that thing with the Dead. A friend of mine is a big Grateful Dead follower. And
oh, yeah.
Told him, I said, hey man, you got to go check this out. And he's like, what, John Mayer? I'm like, trust me, he's a monster. And he took over Jerry's stuff. He got all the guitars, all the signal chain, everything, learned all of Jerry's stuff. And Adam just went and he did the whole East Coast leg of their tour. And he came back and he was like, oh my God, every single show was magnificent because John is so good. Everyone else has to rise to his level to play.
Yeah.
you know.
Spectacular talent, and they make it look so easy. I don't know how some talent can do that, but wow, I'm always blown away.
Well, you know, good for him. He's had a good, successful career. So
Absolutely. Well, you got a great career going. How long have you been in this business now?
well, I started playing in bands in the late 80s and played all through Seattle in the 90s when all the stuff was going on.
Uh-huh.
I got stories.
I'm sure, being in this business.
And then so the band I was in broke up, but we had a management contract, and our manager was out of Santa Barbara, and he called me up one day and he goes, "Hey, you really got to come down here because you need to do this songwriting workshop with Jim Messina." And I said,
Yeah.
"Who?" Because I grew up, and my mom was well, my parents were hippies. My dad left pretty early on, and wasn't really around. And my dad was more of the country music and classical guy, and my mom was the hippie. And
Yeah.
we had my babysitter when I was a kid was a record player, and we had all these records. But you can't have all the records, so one of the things we didn't have was we didn't have any logins in Messina or Polka or Buffalo Springfield. So I didn't really know about that till way later on. So anyway, so I went down to Santa Barbara, and it's a funny story. I walked into the workshop thing and I said, "Hey, which one of these guys is Jimmy?" And he was standing right there.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Everyone down there worshiped the ground he walked on. He kind of looked at me and was like, "Who is this guy?" And he walked up to me and he said, "Who are you?" I said, "Oh, I'm Ian. I came down from Seattle. My manager told me I should come take the songwriting class." And I looked at him. I go, "Hey, where can I have a cigarette?" And I was the only one who smoked. I don't smoke anymore, but I was the only one that smoked other than Jimmy. And he goes, "Here, let's go outside." So we went outside and had a cigarette together and became friends, and we're still friends to this day. So
Thank for the cigarettes.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly. There's only one benefit to having a cigarette. And I played all through Santa Barbara. I did a bunch of solo stuff, and then started a band with these guys only out of sheer convenience because we kept sharing the same stage. And they said, "Hey, we'll learn all your stuff and back you, and you can learn our stuff and back us." So we got together, and then it was just one of those time stand still moments. So we said, "Hey, maybe we should start a band." So we started a band called FM 1960, and that's the band that toured all over the place. And then of course, that band, like all others, crashed and burned right when we were at the pinnacle of our success. Of course, there was drugs involved, and people sleeping with everyone else's girlfriends, and it was just typical Fleetwood Mac story. And then so I moved to LA and played out of there. And again, I figured, man, what better place to go if you're going to do it? Jump into the fire. And the first thing I learned after I spent all my money moving to LA is, if you want to be successful in LA, the first thing you got to do is get out of LA. So I did that whole scene, made a record or two, toured, mostly just solo tours, and then saved all my pennies so I could move out of LA. And then during that time, my girlfriend and I decided to get married. So we got married while we lived in LA, and we wanted to have kids. So I said, "I'm not bringing a kid into this world in Hollywood. That would be cruel, and I would never be forgiven." So we moved back up here with the intention of taking like 2 or 3 years off to have a kid. And then my dad's wife got sick, and she died of cancer. And then we took care of my dad, and then he got sick, and then he died of cancer. And then I had to take care of his estate. Meanwhile, we had another kid. During that whole thing, the 2 or 3 years off turned into 13 years off.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's pretty busy.
Well, family's first. I don't care what anyone says. You can always play music, but you can't always take care of your dad.
Yeah, how true that is.
And
it's like that movie Nothing in Common. If you remember that, if you saw that with Tom Hanks and Jackie Gleason, yeah, he basically like put his life totally on hold for his dad. Yeah, totally that story.
Yeah, and that's what you got to do. So I did that, and then I tried to do music kind of as a hobbyist, just to kind of keep my chops up, and I was virtually miserable. I'm one of those guys that's just cursed. I have music running through my head all the time. And I was playing with guys that they were good musicians and they were great guys, but it just wasn't the right fit. Their chemistry wasn't right. And it just kind of, I wasn't happy. So I decided to, I also at that time decided I'm never going to be in a band again. Cause you can knock yourself out, because it was mostly my material. And I was like, look, this is crazy. Every time I do something and we're just about to get, something's going to happen, the band breaks up and it's not my fault. And so I said, well, I'm just going to go solo and I hated the idea of using my name. I can't stand that. But, had I used my name from 1990, I probably would be in a different position now because of it's surely because of product recognition from a marketing standpoint. But, whatever. Here we are. And also the other thing about that is during that time off, the music industry totally changed. Everything I knew about the music industry didn't matter anymore. Now we had social media, we have streaming, we have everything, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, all of which I didn't understand how important it was.
Yeah.
So now here we are. And so, one of the unfortunate things about the pandemic really sucked for me, because we did the Results Not Typical record, which is the best record I've ever made. And we basically released it at the beginning of March, and a week later, the whole world shut down,
Yeah. That's a great record. If you ever peruse around in the internet there, I feel like there's like this Jackson Browne feel to Results Not Typical. You kind of have that SoCal kind of feel to it.
Well, that's, Jesse, the producer, Jesse lives in Ojai.
Yeah.
And and there is, it's funny because I didn't really get it. I didn't understand the whole Jackson Browne, Crosby, Stills and Nash, that whole sort of, some people call it yacht rock, whatever you want to call it. I didn't get that. I didn't understand. And then when I moved to Santa Barbara, I was like, oh, it's like, now I get it. Everything's so beautiful. All the women are beautiful.
Yeah.
A 5 in Santa Barbara is a 10 anywhere else in the country. And there's avocados and limes and oranges growing. And it's paradise, So I'm like, okay, now I get this music. So maybe there's a little of that from what I was doing. And then also working with Jesse, that was kind of, we really set out to do something. One of my friends said, hey, because I'd made a bunch of records, and he said, if you really want to do this, if you want to try to be successful again, you really got to pick a lane. And no one had ever put it like that before. So the lane I decided to pick is completely represented in Results Not Typical.
Totally. Yeah. You do. You got to have that feeling, that brand, and you stick with that because it's a familiar thing. People keep coming back to that, so you could always feel that. I love Santa Barbara. I remember there's like a butterfly sanctuary there, and yes. I remember the downtown. It's beautiful, and I ate at the Santa Barbara seafood company right on the beach there.
Oh yeah,
it's gorgeous. Yeah, what a great culture.
It's the only thing about Santa Barbara. It's the only place I've ever seen the millionaires get displaced by billionaires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is a really weird thing to wrap your head around when you see it happen. But the amount of money in Santa Barbara is mind-blowing. And then the disparity between the people with money and without money is also almost disgusting. But you're going to see that wherever you go if you look for it. So
that is so true. So doing that record, how did you get hooked up with Jesse Siebenberg? And Jesse has a very long music history there too, as well. How did that all come about?
Well, when I lived in Santa Barbara, one of the things about Santa Barbara is that it's an incestuously small town. Once you're there, and I got ingrained, I was very fortunate very early on, probably because of my friendship with Jimmy, to meet and become friends with some people that were pretty heavy hitters in the Santa Barbara area. So the first 8 months I lived there, I didn't have a job. I was just playing music and hanging out. I had some savings and got to do some session work and got to meet a bunch of really cool people. And one of the things that happens in Santa Barbara, especially during the summer, is that there are these parties that people have at these extraordinary properties. And there was this place that was called, this guy had it, he's no longer with us, Billy Brichette. He was a wonderful individual. He had this place up in Toro Canyon. Literally, he built like a little amphitheater in his yard with the ocean and the islands in the backdrop. It was up in the hills, and he would have this thing called Toro Canyon Bowl, and like Mike Campbell would come from the Heartbreakers, would come, and Ronnie Blair would come and play, and all these people would play. And so we would do our thing, and our bands would play, or I would do a solo. We'd have jams or whatever. And then after, when everyone got kicked out, the musicians would stay and just hang out all night, have like a fire and play guitar and play Beatles songs around the fire. And that's where I met Jesse. We played together, and we knew each other just from playing. And I knew he was an alien. I mean, the guy can play any instrument and sing like a bird. And he's one of those guys that just, even if he doesn't really know the song, he can just sing harmonies to it perfectly.
Yeah, he's totally born into it. It's amazing.
We used to do this thing where we would switch. We would do like If I Fell by the Beatles and like randomly switch high part to low part. And he would just, on cue, just nail it. So I knew him. And I also knew that he produced records, but I never did that with him. I wasn't in, that was a different part of his life. And then after I did the Piano Songs Volume 1 record, I had started making The Results Not Typical up in Seattle, and I got totally burned. And for a lot of money and a lot of time. And that's a story for another day. But I remember calling one of my friends, John Mooey, down in Santa Barbara, who was one of the people I met when I first was there. And there's the last song on the Results Not Typical record is Goodbyes Are the Hardest Words. And I remember playing that and John coming up to me and saying, you have to have my friend Jesse record that song. And that was 15 years earlier.
Wow.
And so I called John up, and he was like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, man, I got burned. I don't know what to do. I'm just totally I was totally in a funk. I was in a depression. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I spent all this money. And he said, call Jesse, have him do your record. And I said, oh yeah, but he's like a rock star and he's so busy. And because it was always like, hey, check me out, I'm on Letterman. Hey, check me out, I'm on Kimmel. I'm like, he was always on these shows playing drums or guitar or whatever. And John said, no, he just had a kid. He's taking a year off. Call him up. This was a perfect time. So I sent Jesse an email or a text, I think. I sent him a text. I had his number. And I was fully expecting to have to do the obligatory 2-week follow-up. Oh, did you get my text? Maybe we could do a song or two, maybe a short EP. And like 20 minutes later, I get this scrolling text back from Jesse saying, oh my God, perfect timing. I've been following your stuff online. I love your songs. I already know who's going to play on the record and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, what? So I set up a tour and I went down the West Coast and I played down to Santa Barbara with the intent of taking a day into going into Ojai and seeing the studio, which I did. And we started pre-production and literally flew down on a Friday and we did pre-production for 2 days. Sunday night, he sent the tracks to, we basically recorded everything in his home studio, just acoustic versions and changed a bunch of stuff around, rearranged stuff. He sent it out Sunday night. Monday morning, we met Joey Waronker, Dave Palmer and Aaron Embry switched on piano. Jason Soda played guitar. And then there was Johnny Flower who played with Ryan Adams, played bass one day. And then a guy named Gabe Noel, who's a sensational bass player and cello player. He played bass the second day. And we recorded 5 songs live the first day with no click track. So everything on that record is drums, bass, guitar, acoustic guitar, piano, and vocals are all live, no comping, anything. And the second day we did 6 songs, and that was it. So that's why the album's called Results Not Typical, because, 5 guys in a room together that have never heard the stuff, maybe 3 takes per song, and that was it. And even guys like Joey were like, wow, this doesn't really happen anymore.
Yeah, it's very rare because you see the stuff in mainstream and you got like 7 producers on one track and it's just so synthetic, and what you have is very organic. It's very rare.
And so the cool thing, and that's, I was telling someone the other day, I was doing a Zoom interview, and I said, one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, and I have told a lot of singer-songwriters this, because there's a lot of people like in the Seattle area, and they ask questions about how I, got to where I am. And I said, the toughest thing I ever did was hire a real producer. I mean, everyone says they're a producer, right? But a real producer. And I always wondered, what does a real producer do? And really, the job of a real producer is to just put the right cats in the room.
Yeah,
That's what, because, and if you read things about, or if you hear stories about guys like Rick Rubin or some of these great producers, what their job, Tommy, what is it, Iata or whatever his name was, they put the right guys in the room, and then they don't have to work.
Yeah, they don't micromanage. A really great producer doesn't sit there and micromanage, and they just make you feel comfortable. I think that's the thing I got out of Phil Ramone's book, Making Records. It was like, make them comfortable.
In fact, I'm going to write that down. You're like the fourth person who said that, who's talked about that book.
Just the right microphone. Making Records is fantastic. He produced everybody from Peter Paul and Mary through Billy Joel and people like that. Just really turned these careers around and really sold a lot of records that way. It really is. It's so important. But even just having the right environment, put down that nice magic carpet under you, make you feel good and just comfortable.
Right. So I know so we did that record in 2 days, and then it took a year and a half to finish it. And which was great, because
production, yeah.
So we had like our friend Paul Campbell, or Paul Cartwright. He's a violin player and fiddle player from Bakersfield. He's like plays at the Hollywood. He's a big LA session guy. We hired him to come do the strings on Athens Smiles, and I made a trip down just for that weekend because I wanted to see Paul, and we hung out. It kind of became an excuse for me to go down to Ojai for the weekend to quote unquote work on the record. But me and Jesse just hung out and had a blast. And then, that happened. We started in last January. I went down and to do pre-production for the next record. And we did a bunch of just acoustic versions to show them some stuff. Liars, Criminals, Beggars and Thieves had been started like 20 years earlier. And I had like 17 verses and 9 bridges. And because of what was going on with the leading up to the election, I said, I played him. It was just the idea. I played it for him, and he was like, "Ooh, yeah, we got to do that." So he helped me finish that song. He's got writing credit on it, and we called that down to 4 verses and two bridges, and or 2 choruses, if you will, and we had like these demos. And then when the pandemic happened, he called me up and he goes, "Hey, man, who knows how long it's going to be before anyone can do anything? So he goes, I listened to those tracks and they're totally workable. Do you want to move forward with them?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we did fly some tracks back and forth we did a couple of recordings up here in Seattle and just flew him the tracks, and he worked with them. And that's how this EP came out. And we were going to do more songs, but we weren't sure what the hell was going to happen. And honestly, I still don't know what's, when I know there's people out touring right now, but there's a lot of people that are not. There's a lot of people that are not playing, and parts of the country are way worse than up here. So I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm doing some shows. Like we just set up our album release show at the Tractor Tavern up here in Seattle for October 20th, which is 2 days before the record comes out. But beggars can't be choosers. And we'll see. Hopefully by the spring, I will be able to get out there. I've talked to some national booking agents, and they don't want to take anyone else on right now, which I totally understand.
Yeah.
But I really want to take I put together a band. It took me 4 years to cobble together this band. And every time we play together, I think I should go out and buy a lottery ticket, because I'm the luckiest bastard on the planet to have these guys playing with me. It's so much fun. They're so good, and they love the music.
Yeah.
And when we go out and play, people freak out. And it's cool because I have been in a lot of really good bands, but nothing even close to this.
Yeah.
I know that wherever we go, I would feel sorry for anyone who has to go on stage after us.
Yeah, it's good to have a good tight unit. You're a team. And if you're all on that same page, boy, it could really click. With some bands you see are just like, they could make it happen. But yeah, you see the infighting, you hear about it later
Oh,
on.
nothing's worse than going to see a band and it looks like they all would rather be anywhere else than on stage. And it's like,
Yeah.
man, you're supposed to be entertaining us. Don't, what a drag. So every time we go, we have way more fun than it's even fair. And I'm really looking forward to taking this out on the road. And I know I'm going to have to go out by myself, probably solo troubadour, and kind of pave the way. But because it's also expensive to take a band on tour. I mean, it costs me between $1,500 and $2,000 a day.
Yeah,
to take these guys on the road, and that's out of the gate. I'm not going to get. I'm very realistic. I know that I'm starting from scratch, having just basically started out as a solo artist. Even though I've been doing this 30 years, I know how it is, and I know there's the great chance. Jimmy told me once, the best advice I ever got was from Jimmy. And he said, he goes, don't stop doing what you're doing. You're really good at what you do. And I was like, thanks. That's coming from you. Obviously that's a huge compliment coming from him. And he said, it's all about being lucky. He goes, you just got to be in the right place at the right time.
It's so true. It is your timing. Yeah.
He said, here's the deal. He said, so that being said, he goes, you have to be ready to be in the right place at the right time. So always be rehearsed. Don't show up drunk. This is respect the craft, and be ready. And then if you are ready and that person's there, that can change your life. And he goes, but more importantly, you have to be ready to never be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the best advice I've ever got. And it's true, because if you do it because you're trying to get rich or famous, you're going to be bitter and jaded. But if you do it because you love it, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's not about putting that pressure on yourself. You'll don't set the bar so high, and then you're gonna end up being depressed if it's not gonna hit your level of fame that you really want. Right. It's silly. I mean, it's about the craft. It really is.
And the other cool thing about that is that in my lead up to trying to break back into the music industry, what I was doing is my sister works in radio. She runs a station in Marin. And she was on some panels at the AMA in Nashville in September, and they have it I'm not there this year. I think it's going on right now or next week. I think it's next week. And I started going with her, and I didn't tell anyone I played. I just went to learn. She said, come out and just pay attention and learn and soak it all in. And I did. And one of the things I learned is that if you're going to do this, and if I'm going to do this and I'm going to give it a real shot, which I'm really trying to do, you have to have a revenue stream.
Yeah.
And I don't have rich parents, so that's not an option. I didn't win the lottery, so that's not an option. So what I did is I've been working on houses for the last, forever. That's what I do. I work on houses, and I've gotten better and better, and I've created a reputation for myself here in Seattle. And I don't even advertise anymore. And I tell people no all week. But I kicked my business into a different level. I was like, I knew that this was what I was going to have to do. So I kicked my business up to a different level. And I love my job, and it pays well enough that it allows me to work with Conqueror, and it allows me to work with Jenny Finlay from Austin in doing radio promotion and management. And it allows me to hire a social media expert, to manage my social media stuff. Cause I don't have time or the bandwidth to understand. It's a younger kid's game, So, and this girl is smart as a whip. She's like 24, 25, and she's all over it like a cheap suit, And I'm like, great, you handle it. Here's my passwords. Let me know what you need from me, and I'll, approve it. That all costs money. And the plus side of that is that if I am never successful playing music, I have a great career to fall back on that pays really well. So I've kind of set myself up for a no pressure situation. And of course, that's generally when things happen.
Yeah, they do. You just relax and you're really enjoying it. And it really shows. We see it a lot in the work. So Liars, Criminals, Beggars, and Thieves, about politicians. Obviously, it's the present day landscape that inspired you to do that. It sounds like this song could have been like an Arlo Guthrie 17-minute song. So you whittled it down to something that's more current.
Yes. And we specifically chose and changed the words so that it's not about any one party. I wanted
Right.
I wanted it to be where anyone could listen to it and go, yeah, those fuckers. Let's see that. Yeah, it's about that, it's about them. And I think we pulled that off. And we get, Jesse and I giggled pretty hard when and then when we did it, he's like, well, we've got to, make it so that it gives a nod to the people that did this kind of music. I mean, I'm not a political activist by any stretch of the imagination, so this is kind of a one-off for me. But we did it so it's, if you could sing in a perfect Dylan impression, it could be a Dylan song. It also could be like a Petty song, and we purposely didn't put a 12-string Rickenbacker in it because then it would have been like a total Roger McGuinn ripoff. So kind of had that vibe, and I think we pulled off exactly what we wanted to. And again, we got a good kick out of it.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be a good song. I mean, people really like it. So I had one guy tell me, because we did release it, even though it's on this record and it's going to be the next single with the proper media push, it came out and got a little bit of traction before the election. And one guy from like South Carolina was like, oh my God, this is the theme song for 2020.
Yeah, it really is. And yeah, you're not like naming specifics. It's the culture. It definitely is the culture. And what happens when typical human beings just get sucked into it like a vacuum, and it changes them.
Totally.
Completely. I've seen like completely, totally normal people, and then they get into it, and it gives them a certain kind of a conceit, and you kind of forget where you come from. I think with many of them, there are a few good ones in there, but generally speaking, it's really true about that kind of a song.
Yeah, and it's for me, it's too bad because what happens is you get just a normal cross section of people, and politics can drive such a huge wedge in between. I mean, it can ruin friendships and it can ruin marriages. Probably it has, I'm sure, and it just creates ugliness, which there's already too much of. And and one of the beautiful things is, Tom Petty said about music. He said music is really the only one true magic that really exists. I mean, I guess love is kind of a magic as well, but music really, it's one of those things that has to be. I mean, people need food and people need water, but people need music. I mean, I can't even imagine if you took all the music away. I mean, civilization would stop.
Oh, it's so true. You need it. It is. I think it's a staple, and I've seen it bring people together. And there's certain artists. I don't know if it's such a great thing. Some pull it off well by taking a stance. You got your Springsteens and Mellencamp's, but a lot of them, you have a cross section of people from liberal to conservative in your audience. So I think it's just best to kind of stay neutral. Not to say that you shouldn't have an opinion, but it's kind of hard to take a stance because then you end up alienating a certain cross section of people too.
And as a musician, you can't afford to alienate anyone, unless you get guys like Ed Vedder, and he tried, and it didn't matter one way or the other. If he loses a couple of fans, he's not going to starve to death. And my 15-year-old daughter is like, Daddy, if you get to a place, then you can use your stature to take on, what, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's not what I'm going to do, because that's just it's not who I am as a person.
Yeah. That's true.
I'm sure Springsteen has always been like that. He's probably always had a strong opinion, and he's probably always been in almost like an activist sort of role, and good for him. I mean, I love him to death. His art is beautiful. But that's just not my jam. So I don't plan on, ever doing that.
Yeah, there are very few who could pull that off. Somebody who's very established, has been around for 50 plus years. He could kind of get away with that. But in today's landscape, it's just best to really kind of just stay in the middle, stay neutral. And I think you do it just right with that track. So this 6-song EP, you got some really good songs on there too, especially is this being considered the title track, Evergreens?
Yeah, so Evergreens is, and again, this is one of those things, I know people that go to painstaking lengths to try to figure out what they're going to call stuff, and I'm just like, You know, the same thing with like the order of the songs. Honestly, I am the last person that anyone should ask about any of that stuff, because everything I say, everyone's like, oh, you know, that's not a good idea. So you know, I like with Results Not Typical, I tried to pick the order of the songs, and I sat for hours and I listened to the beginnings and the endings and I put them together. So I had this great order, and I sent it to Jesse, and Jesse's like, yeah, no, that's terrible. And I'm like, oh man, come on.
How do you do that? Yeah, really.
And then he said, look, that's when he was touring with Lucas Nelson. And he said, I've been driving around the country listening to this record for 3 months. So this is the order it's going to go. And of course, he put it in that order, and it's perfect. So with this one, I was like, hey, what's the order? And he was like, oh, how about this? And I was like, fine, you're the producer, man. I mean, I kind of just jokingly, I'm like, you're the producer, whatever you say goes. We've got that kind of, because we're such good friends, I can joke with him like that. And then one of my friends was like, hey man, you really should call it Liars, Criminals, Beggars and Thieves, because it's such a great track. And I was like, yeah, but then it kind of makes me look like I'm a political activist, and I don't want to go there. And then when we finished Evergreens, someone heard it and they're like, oh my God, that song is amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, all right, so there's the album title, and then we can just take a picture of trees and put it on the cover, you know? And I was half joking, and that's what we did. And then we ended up making a video for it. And it's funny how, again, it goes back to, it's not that I don't care. It's just that I don't put any pressure on myself. So it made it really easy to go, oh yeah, well that works. Let's just do that. And then it worked out.
Yeah, it's nice to have a very simple one-word title. I think, doing Liars, Criminals, Beggars, and that just takes a long time to sit there and say, hey, here's my new EP. You know, it's like, right. I think it's much easier to just simply go with a simple title, and great then title track. And is it about, people who are having the guts to just leave their hometowns and basically exploring on their own? And a lot of us have done that, in our lives. It's just leave your hometown, leave your comfort zone, and just feeling like you're taking on the world. I kind of get that feeling out of it.
That's exactly what. And it's funny because as you get older, when you go through life and you meet people, the people that went out and did that, even if you end up back home in your comfort zone, if you went out and pioneered, if you went and traveled through Europe, or if you went and lived in a different state, those people are interesting.
Yeah.
I get along with those people way better than I get along with the people that never, that still live 2 miles from where they grew up. And not that there's anything wrong with those people. I'm great friends with both cross sections, but it's interesting how you can really get that from when you talk. You don't even have to ask them. It's like almost like you know. And then you end up saying, where are you from? And they're like, oh, well, originally I'm from so-and-so, but I lived here. And you're like, oh, yeah, of course you did.
Yeah, you get so many more stories and so many more perspectives. If you even just go through Europe for 3 months out of your life and then come back home or whatever, you come back with more experiences. So yeah, I find that it's not about a judgment. There are people who are interesting, who've been in the same hometown. Hey, I've been in Mayberry for the last 40 years, haven't done anything else. I mean, they got their own little perspective too, but something to be said about like jumping out there on your own and just taking on the world.
Yeah, it's fun. And but the thing is and while you're doing it, you don't realize, like Evergreens, the basis of the song is I'm down literally in paradise, and I've got friends, but my girl was with me, who I'm married to. Our anniversary is this week. I mean, we'll have been married 18 years. We're almost together 28 or 29.
Wow.
And, yeah, right. That's pretty rare in this industry.
Chunk out of the life. Yeah. That's good.
I know, it's great. And so I had her, but you don't realize, especially living up here, you take for granted so many things. Like you take for granted being able to look at Mount Rainier. You take for granted the Puget Sound and the mountains and the trees, how beautiful everything is until you can't see it.
You've been in I love the West and where you're at there in Seattle. And I bet Ojai is gorgeous. I went near Ojai on the way to Santa Barbara, and Ventura, California is really cool too. I just love those areas. So when you started Evergreens, you started writing. Yeah, it's really neat. Did you start writing evergreens in a garage? Is the
Well,
bio?
no, actually, believe it or not, so I was living in Santa Barbara, and the story goes, I was living in Santa Barbara, and one of the things I missed was my best friend who co-wrote the song, Dave Bickford, and he co-wrote one of the songs on the last record as well. Um, we, he's my hunting and fishing partner,
Cool.
and before I left, we used to fish for salmon in the Puget Sound a lot. So I was down in Santa Barbara, and it was that time of year, and he was calling me every day saying, "Oh, I caught another 25 pounder. Oh, I caught another 27 pound." And I was like, "Dude, guys, knock it off, you know?" So this one day I'm sitting at lunch in Santa Barbara, and I'll never forget, I was at Red Robin at the bar eating lunch, watching TV, and on TV there was guys catching salmon in Alaska when my phone rings, and it's Dave, and he's like, "Just caught another 20 pounder." And I'm like, "Dude, hold on a second, I'll call you back." Hung up, called my boss, and I said, "I'm going to need a couple days off." He's like, "That's fine." Called the airline, booked a flight out the next morning. Went home, told my Pauline, I said, "Hey, I'm going to go visit Dave for a couple days." Got my fishing pole, went to the airport. Dave picked me up, drove right to the dock, got in his boat. We fished every waking moment pretty much for 4 days and didn't catch a damn thing. And one of the mornings we were sitting in this fishing boat. And the thing about fishing with someone like that, who's your best friend, is you don't even talk. You just sit there and you're just together and you're just doing your thing. And it was unseasonably warm. And I remember at one point, one of us said, "It's 9 a.m." And then a couple minutes go by and the other one goes, "Sure don't feel like August." And then Dave looked at me and he goes, "Dude, if that's not the first line of a song,
Oh yeah.
I've never heard." And I was like, 9 a.m. Sure don't feel like, I'm like, yeah, that's it. So I ended up going home, and I was sitting around, and I was in my garage, and my friend Pat Milliken had got me, you know, in this open tuning dadgad. He'd been bugging me to write something in it. So I was sitting there and I was messing around, and I came up with this little lick.
Cool.
And I just sang, "It's 9 a.m. It sure don't feel like August." And I was, at that time, I was had really realized that I was missing my friends. I was missing, you know, in spite of being in a place that's like paradise, surrounded by such great stuff, I was sad. I was lonely. I missed my friends. I missed my home. And that whole song wrote itself in like 15 minutes. So
Cool.
yeah, so that's the gist of it. And so you know, it's funny because I had totally I'd almost forgotten about the song. And then one day I was sitting around with the band, and they showed up, and I had taken my guitar, and because I remembered it, I had my guitar and dadgad, I was messing around, and the band came in and I was playing it, and I got done, and the guitar player looked at me and goes, "What the hell song is that?" I said, "Oh, it's this old one, Evergreens." He goes, "Well, we're learning that tonight." So
Cool.
yeah.
So, yeah. Feel free to play us your track Evergreens.
Yeah, I'd like to. If you want to hear it, I would love to.
Let's hear it.
So yeah, all right, here we go. It's 9 a.m. Sure don't feel like August. Cold winds blowing from the east. I miss my friends. It seems forever since I left my home in the Evergreens. The day I left, my path so sure it set itself. Now I'm not sure what it means. Still each day I rise, hope to start another day, one step closer to my dreams. Should the road I ride lead me to that promised land? Should I end up far from where I want to be? Well, I only hope that when my time comes on Judgment Day, that judge goes easy on me. Hey, ain't it nice? Another day down here in paradise. Yeah, but is this where I wanna be? I take a good look around, notice that my guard's gone down, and the price of happiness ain't free. And should the road I ride lead me to that promised land? Should I end up far from where I want to be? I only hope that when my time comes on Judgment Day, that judge goes easy on me. Now it's nearly midnight. It's early mid-September. The red wine has got the best of me. And here I sit again, and I still miss my friends up there in the Evergreens.
Beautiful song. Very, very beautiful. I could see that being very big in Nashville. You kind of have that kind of influence.
Well,
just the acoustic.
God willing and the creek don't rise, I'll be there soon enough.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
Great music town over there too. Reminds me of that. A lot of good talent there as well.
Yeah, I think I do okay there.
Yeah, I could see that. A lot of good tracks on this. Yeah, it's another interesting one is called Born Again Sinner, and you get a little backstory on that one as well.
So the backstory on Born Again Sinner is I was on tour in Montana, and I was sick and tired of being woke up when the sun came up in my van after being up late. So I was so I went out and I bought some of this blockout fabric, like light blockout fabric. And so what I was doing is I was looking for some Velcro. So I was in Hamilton, I think, and I was walking up the street, and there was these two girls on the sidewalk, and I walked up to them and I said, "Hey, excuse me, I hate to interrupt you, but could you tell me where I could maybe find some Velcro?" And this girl was so nice. She said, "Oh," and she like totally blew her friend off, and she walked me up to the corner. She goes, "Now down here, there's this, and if you take this left or go right, or then there's this store, and then if you go into the store and you go to the left," and she told me exactly where to go. And I went, I followed her directions, and by God, I found my Velcro. So I went back, and I had some time to kill. So I went back, and I was kind of walking around, and I said, "You know what? That was really nice of her to take." So I went back to her she had a salon, her own salon. And I went in, I said, "Hey, thank you. I found the Velcro. I just want to thank you for taking the time and to show me where to get it." She goes, "Oh no, that's fine." So we started talking. She goes, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I'm on tour, and I'm playing tonight down the street." And then she was like, "Oh my gosh, you must be hungry. Hold on a second." And she like disappeared. And I'm like, "What?" So she disappears in the back. She comes out with antelope enchiladas that she had made, with antelope that she had shot herself.
Oh my gosh.
And it was the best enchiladas I've ever had in my entire life. And she sat there and she heated them up and she made me eat them. And she was so nice. And I thought, this is weird. So anyway, we became like social media friends. It turns out that she was, had some, I don't want to say troubled past, but she had some issues with substance and is sober now, and was also quite religious. As I think part of her recovery was the religion part, and she was always posting about how hard it was to stay on the straight and narrow, and all these times she had slipped up, and at one point she had said, "I guess I'm just a born again sinner." And I thought, oh my God, I just couldn't get it out of my head. So one day I was messing around, and the funny thing about that song is that song was written to be almost like a running down a dream Tom Petty song. It was supposed to have this backbeat and be really fast. And when I went down and when we did the demos with Jesse, I played the acoustic guitar part and I sang it, fully intending for it to be the way I wanted it in my head and for me to come back and recut the vocals. Well, then Jesse, when we decided we were going to move forward with the tracks, I'd kind of forgotten that was one of the songs we had done. And he sends me this version. And of course, in the meantime, the band is playing Born Again Sinner, this upbeat kind of running down a dream, Tom Petty style way. And he sends me this message that says, well, I kind of went a little Blade Runner with it. Let me know if you don't like it. So I put it up on the PA for the band and we were listening to it. And I'm thinking to myself, how the hell did he get this out of what I gave him? Which just goes to show you how great of a producer he is. And all the guys in the band were like, sorry, dude, this is way better than how you wanted to do it. So I was like, all right, so I guess this is how it goes now. So I'm just learning how to redo it the way that Jesse did it, because I just haven't played it, because I kind of needed to give it a rest so I could listen to it a bunch and come back to it. But yeah, that's the backstory on that. It was basically, and actually the funny thing is that I was recently in Hamilton, and it was right after I got the EPs, and then, they're not out till October, but I had them. So I stopped off at her salon, and she wasn't there, but I asked the gal next door, I said, because I sent her a message when I wrote it. I said, hey, I wrote a song based on one of the things you had said. I hope you don't mind. It's not about you. It's just about it's based on what you had said, being a born again sinner. And she was like, oh no, that's great. I can't wait to hear it. So I dropped off a copy of the EP with the lady next door, and I said, will you make sure that she gets this? And I haven't heard from her. She doesn't come up on my feed very much, because I think we kind of walk different paths. But so I'll be back there someday, and I'd like to go. Hopefully I can meet up with her and hope she gets it, and hope she doesn't hate the song or think I'm weird.
Yeah, that's sad. But yeah, what a great story though, because really, honestly, it's amazing where those inspirations come from. And it's great when it's more impromptu and you don't even expect it. It's just, some of the biggest hits of our biggest artists, it just came to them like lightning. It's just amazing how fast it happens.
It's amazing how stuff comes, I mean, Hallelujah came when I was cooking Christmas Eve dinner. I was in my kitchen and that song completely came to me, the entire thing. I actually wrote it on my phone in the notes, because I couldn't go grab a guitar because I had like 6 things cooking at once. And I'm like, I was mad. I was like, I can't believe I've got this song in my head. What am I going to do? I don't have the facilities to pick up a guitar or sit at the piano. I can't, because I'm going to burn everything or no one's going to eat dinner. So I wrote it down on my phone in between cooking. And then at the end of the night, I went out and lo and behold, the entire song worked. I only changed 2 words in the song. Only because they were too personal based on what the song is about. I didn't feel comfortable singing those words in the event that the person who it was about heard it. And I just thought it was not fair. So I changed the words. And the new words work fantastic. So it's not like the song suffers for it, but.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I still have in my notes on my phone, I still have the original lyrics.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it can end up in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame one day. You just basically, you have to donate to them one day. So through the pandemic, have you been doing, what have you been doing online? Have you been doing these weekly live streams? A lot of artists have been doing that kind of stuff.
I started to do I did some live streams. And I'm not a big computer guy, so I'm not like Bill Gates over here. And I did update my bandwidth on my, and I'm in Seattle, so we do have really good internet, and but I upgraded to like the most high speed upload and download so I wouldn't have any problem. But I still had problems with latency issues, and that drives me crazy.
Oh, I know.
When I'll literally, it could be my favorite artist, and if the sound and the audio are off, or in the video are off, I can't watch.
Yeah.
I can listen, I can turn it on and listen in the background. And I know that like James McMurtry, I work with Jenny Finley and she works with James, and they really struggled because James did that a lot. He did the live streams like every week or twice a week. And it took forever for them to try to figure it out. And of course I don't have forever. And I also don't have a team of people to help me with it. So we did some stuff where we're going to put one of them up. We went into this local recording studio and we recorded everything and videoed it. And then we were going to mix it and then upload it.
Yeah.
So that it was professional and it was okay to watch. And I've done some ones where we recorded a story and a song where I tell the story about a song and then I play the song. And there's on the YouTube, I think there's a YouTube, one of the channels on my YouTube channel, there's a part of it that has the story and the song you can check out. But really moreover on the pandemic, the pandemic sucked because, I couldn't go out and tour and promote Results Not Typical. And I was able to put all the stuff out to radio before everything shut down. So Jenny was able to really get that album out, and it got a lot of traction. It got a lot of airplay. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to tour behind it and go put a face to the music. But one of the things that it was, the shutdown was almost a blessing in disguise, because when we started, we had spent so much time making sure that the record was done right, that I didn't have the content on the social media sites. So what I did is I spent the lockdown really going out and making sure that we had videos on YouTube, and the Instagram, I posted a lot. So we got all the numbers up on that. I tried to get my Spotify numbers up, which we're still working on. I'm working with a couple people to get the Spotify, get on playlists and stuff. And that's navigating that as a whole new, it's very complicated.
It really is. Yeah. It's a whole science. It's like, how do you get the eyes and ears on your material? It's really, because everybody could do it these days. It's really hard to compete. It really is.
It's like there's these gatekeepers in everything, because there's so much great music and you wouldn't know it by what you get to hear.
It's so true.
Like the market is oversaturated with mediocrity, which makes it so hard to navigate. And there are these gatekeepers that make it so hard to get past them. But they call it the music business, and everyone thinks that that's just a neat catchphrase, but it is a business, and it is one of the hardest and nastiest and brutal businesses to be in. Why I want to be in it is you should get my head checked, but
we're all gluttons for punishment.
I know, right? We're all like, why do we do this? But it's hard for a reason.
Yeah, it is.
If you kind of have to just have longevity, and sooner or later, if you're lucky, if you're in the right place at the right time, then you can, maybe be one of the very, very few that can eke out some sort of, make it worth your while. Again, I have something I can fall back on, so it's not like I'm relying on this to feed myself. But I think especially now with the team I have, and with Jesse in my corner, the next record's already written, and Jesse's it's going to be 12 songs if I don't write more. Jesse's going to come up here and we're going to record with the band. So it'll be Ian Jones and the Living Room All Stars. It'll be our first record as a full band. And Jesse's going to come up. We're going to record it up here at Ken Stringfellow's studio. Ken is from the Posies, and he's got a great studio up here in Seattle, although I think he lives in France. And we're going to record it up here. Then Jesse's going to go back to California and he's going to mix it and do whatever else he wants to do to it. And those songs, I'm telling you, the next record is arguably going to be better than that last one or this EP.
Excellent, excellent. Well, yeah, and, it's in doing EPs or releasing just singles that's been popular these days too. It's like we've kind of come full circle with that, but I love the full album experience too. It's that come from that time where you get the full vinyl, you get the gatefold, and maybe even a booklet if you were Elton John or somebody like that. And it's just this beautiful artwork, and you can hold it, and it's got a theme to the whole album, and not everything's a hit on there. I really do miss that, and with Spotify and all this stuff, I think it's kind of spoiled it all.
Do you have a record player? Do you listen to vinyl?
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I love it. I need to really get a more upgraded system. But yeah, I mean, I still got my old records. I never wanted to get rid of them. Some people have in the past tried to tell me to get rid of them. I was like, no, there's just something about that tactile. You just feel it. I love that.
You should send me your address. I'll send you a vinyl. We did Results Not Typical. We did in vinyl, and it's beautiful. It's gatefold. It's
Oh yeah.
We did some pretty clever stuff with the captioning of the pictures, and there's some hidden things. It's cool. And then of course you get a download code so you can put it on your phone or whatever. But yeah, you send me your address and I'll send you a vinyl.
I'll definitely do that. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on my show, my podcast, and I hope to see you on the road. Hopefully, you'll come here to Georgia.
Oh, I will. I will. I can't wait. In fact, just talking about it, I remember when I was in Athens, I actually wrote a song called "The Red Bricks of Athens," and I should find it, dust it off, because I vaguely remember it being a very good song.
Yeah, I love that culture up there in Athens. I remember Michael Stipe had a restaurant up there, and I went to it years and years ago from REM. Michael Stipe from REM, and it's just
Yeah. No, I remember it was funny, while we were in town, we were actually playing a show at, I think it was Tasty World.
Yeah.
Tasty World or One Love, one of the places. Anyway, we were playing one of the venues, and we were all excited, and the room was pretty packed, right? We're getting ready to play, and all of a sudden the room just emptied out like a fire drill. We're like, what the hell is going on? Well, it turns out REM was getting ready to do like the bridge benefit, and they did an impromptu live rehearsal concert like across the street, and no one knew about it. All of a sudden someone came in and was like, REM's across the street, free show. And it was like someone farted in the entire room, just totally. And we played to ashtrays. It was like, damn it. And then the next day we were walking back to the house where we were staying, and we walked by, and there was Michael Stipe, Peter Buck, and Mike Mills sitting in a bar having a pint. And I thought, do I go in and say, listen, guys, really, man, you totally ruined our night? I'm like, no, they're probably having a meeting. I don't want to interrupt them. But
oh, that's funny.
Pete Buck lives in Seattle, or at least he has a place here. He was married to a gal, and they were part owners of the Crocodile. They're not anymore, and I'm not sure if he still has a place here, but he was in Seattle for a long time. Him and Robin Hitchcock, who I know, Robin comes here and hangs out with him a lot. So
cool. Well, it's been great speaking with you. You got a great catalog here. I just love it. And where can we get this new album?
So the album comes out on the October 22nd, and you can obviously come if you're in Seattle, or if when we get on the road, you're going to be able to get anything we have. But my website is it's ianjonesmusic.com, and on the merch page you can get the last record and vinyl, and then starting on the 22nd we'll be able to get the EP. We have t-shirts and hats, and we're working on a bunch more merch to designs to get up there.
Yes. And the merch page is really cool. We could get the previous records there, Results Not Typical. We can get an Ian Jones hat and shirt, and even that album called Piano Songs Volume 1.
Which of course implies there's going to be a volume 2, so I better get on the piano and start writing.
You remember years ago, Hall & Oates put out this record called Rock and Soul Part 1. Part 2 never came. That's never ever happened. I don't know why it never happened, but
hey, don't never say never. They could still get together and put it out.
Yeah, even 40 years later, that's true.
Right. Well, they're both. John Oates he's big on the Americana circuit, and God knows Daryl Hall is still killing it. So
those guys are amazing. I did interview John Oates when he came to Eddie's Attic once, and just really amazing. Another gifted songwriter and
very talented. Well, I appreciate it. Make sure you send me your address, and I'll send you off a vinyl. And I appreciate you having me on the show.
Thank you very much. Take
And
care.